Welcome to the Derek Loudermilk Show. This is episode 396 with Arcturus Eden. Arcturus Eden is the creator of the World Peace Ceremony. And in this episode, we talk about what it will take to create world peace. Some of the topics we talk about are: what if we created a U.S. Department of Peace? What about the defense industry selling peace instead of war? The future purpose of the United States, cross-cultural unity, anti-gravity projects, the frequency of our name, how to optimize for love and creativity, and lots more. So without further ado, here is Arcturus Eden. Arcturus Eden, welcome to the show.
Hey, Derek. Great to be on.
Yeah, great to meet you. And I thought we'd actually start with, I saw that you lived on a kibbutz, if that's the right pronunciation, back when you were a kid. And I'm really curious about that. We have been talking about building a little village, buying some land with some friends and creating a community. And so I'd be curious to hear your experience of that when you were growing up.
The best 2 years of my childhood, by far. Yeah, we moved to this kibbutz in Israel when I was 9. And a kibbutz, for those who don't know, is a community. It's like a socialist commune. So most of the kibbutzim, which is kibbutzes plural in Hebrew, most of the kibbutzim were farming communities that were established in the 50s and 60s. And I was like a city boy from Jerusalem. I was like a normal suburban middle child growing up in Jerusalem. And then we moved to the kibbutz. My dad got a job at a biochemical plant that they were also building there. My dad's a biochemist. But from my experience, I was like in utopia. We were 20 kids. I was in 4th grade, 20 kids living together, going to school together. So like 4 kids sleeping per room. We had it wasn't bunk beds, but like 4 beds in a room. Mm-hmm. We each had like our posters and our stuff or whatever. And imagine like at 8 p.m. we would all come back from our little parents' house, which was 5 minutes away, a 5-minute walk in this like community. And then the 20 kids were all in the kids' house, going to sleep together.
Oh, really?
Waking up together, like getting ready, and then going to class in the same building. So it was kind of like being in camp, but for 2 years straight.
So the parents were back in their houses and you kids were all together. Like, did anyone tell you like, okay, lights out, or?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's like a person like, okay, lights out, like maybe, 22-year-old woman or something, like keeping an eye on us. Or there was like different shifts. Different people from the community would do shifts and like watch over us and make sure we're going to sleep. And miraculously, we all like went to sleep. It wasn't you'd think that we'd be like waking up in the middle of the night, but I think we had so much fun during the day that we didn't really need to like, once in a while we'd have like let's stay up until 4 a.m. It was like a supervised kind of gathering. Sure. Maybe I don't know what time we stayed up until. We watched movies, but we'd build like tree houses and play in the sand and build things with our hands. And the school was like a normal school, but there were some activities that involved more socializing. But we had normal subjects. But the culture, I think it wasn't like even just that, okay, as long as you put kids together, then everything works out great. It's kind of like the culture was about togetherness and camaraderie
Hmm.
and doing things together. And like every Friday, the whole kibbutz had would gather together, and there would be like performances and dances. Um, and every day at around 4 p.m., we would walk back to our family's little house, and we would live. We'd spend time with our parents for a few hours. And the whole kibbutz would get together, the whole community would get together for lunch and dinner. So like around 12 and around 6, 7 p.m. And it just was a beautiful, beautiful 2 years of like community, camaraderie, togetherness. That, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds really amazing. And it's, when I look at the things that I want to be experiencing regularly, like running into friends throughout the course of my day, cooking meals together, having a community of people to rely on, all these things are kind of like you can build into a community structure. And they're all my biggest complaints about living. I live in St. Louis. I was out last night doing an ecstatic dance with my community, and people had to drive from all over the city just to get to this place. And then we all sort of scattered afterwards, and it was like, oh, this is really cool to come together. But you know afterwards I left a feeling of like, oh man, it's kind of a shame that we have this little world within this bigger world, but it feels so disjointed sometimes. It's hard to like get the community together.
I think it's pretty amazing that you and I have similar thoughts. It's beautiful that we started in this with you asking about the kibbutz. I've had similar experiences, like going to an ecstatic dance or having like a weekend retreat with people who want to build community, and we have an amazing time. And then there's a feeling of like, oh, now everybody has to like leave and go make money or something. And like, it's like now we need to go do the thing that there's a feeling of like, we got to go do the thing that we don't love to do, or we're like separate, we're back in the system. That's and that got me thinking years ago, like 10 years ago, like, oh, maybe we can create some kind of social currency. Like, wow, there's a way to pay people for being themselves, and then later on, when companies like Patreon, let's say, came about, where they pay people to be themselves, to be artists, to create, or the kind of the crypto blockchain movement of social currencies comes to mind. I don't really think we've solved that problem yet, but I'm optimistic that we're like heading in the right direction to basically help people be themselves. And some people are. I think a lot of people are, and making a living. But back to your point, like feeling community and then separating is yeah, I didn't like that either.
And your point about I think so many people are programmed to associate their value with earning. And right, there's so many useful activities in society that are not associated with earning, that they steer away from, like parenthood, for example, is one, or just being an artist, or a gardener, like making beautiful things. So my wife she's a fantastic example. Like, she adds so much value to everyone's life, and she's a stay-at-home mom and an artist. And it's taken a long time for all of us to sort of realize that that's probably her highest contribution, rather than, because she's tried a few different things where she's like went to work and it was like, it's not, doesn't feel right, or she started her own business. It was like, it doesn't really feel right. So I feel like there is like a social capitalistic programming that's like, your value is associated with the income you can earn.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, there's so much there. I think how we value ourselves, are we able to, the lucky ones of us are able to have our humanness in the forefront and value ourselves in ways that people can see that, and we get paid for who we are. Your point on parenthood, I feel like, you know, I'm not a father yet. There's definitely somewhere along the line where I was sort of prioritizing finding myself, connecting with myself. I just didn't feel like, oh yeah, I'm not ready to get married and just have a kid. I don't feel like safe to just, oh yeah, let's just have a family. Like, we need to like get organized, and I need to like find myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm 43, right? But I'm not the only, like, I have other friends who are like me. I don't feel like I'm the only one. I'm remembering now Elon Musk thinking that it's like, oh, we should have more babies. We need more people in the world so we can do more good things. And some people believe that there's like overpopulation, and I've heard that argument, and it makes sense that if people are doing good net, then we should have more people, more babies. But your point, it's not easy when we don't really truly, all of us, feel safe to reproduce in ways that are fun for everyone, and it's easy and flowy, especially when I've had amazing experiences in communities, let's say in the Bay Area and Hawaii and New York and Burning Man. But it's like those communities break apart for some reason. And then it's like, wait, but that's how I want to have children, not in the, so it's like, so then a bunch of, I see people talking about creating community and that they want to raise their children in communities. And then sometimes that becomes like the most important thing. Oh, let's just really focus on that. And then we're like, well, but actually it's systemic issues. Like, maybe that's the thing to focus on. Maybe it's easier to build community in Costa Rica or something, or Bali, I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, why is it not easy to do it in New York or even Colorado or California? Like, what's really going on?
Yeah, and you know it's interesting you're saying you're 43, and you know I think that happens a lot with like people. They spend a lot of time finding themselves and like making sure they're financially stable and perfecting their, you know, like self-discovery. And then it's more important for women, obviously. They get to be 43 and they're like, oops, I'm kind of past my window to have kids. And you know, there's this epidemic of women that want to have kids, but you know, can't, or kind of miss their window of opportunity. It's like a third or half of all women, I can't even remember, but like won't have kids, but that want to.
Yeah. It's something that I haven't thought even so much about that. It's true.
Well, and when my mom was younger, she read that book, The Population Bomb, and I can't remember who wrote it, but it was like it made a big impact on her. And she's like, I'm only having the one kid because I don't want to contribute to this, you know, terrible thing that's happened. And now we've got the other, basically the opposite, which is like we have all these old people and this top heavy demographics, and then just a little bit of young people at the bottom. You know, so all the boomers are going to be retiring, and instead of putting money into the system, they're going to be taking out, and there's not enough young people to support it. I don't know if you've followed the demographics.
You know what's in my consciousness right now as you're speaking about this is that I'm reminding some of my friends come from families, like yesterday I was hanging out like with my friends who were two brothers, part of a family of 9 children, and they grew up religious Jewish, and there's sort of not really now. There's sort of you know, Miami, LA, Hollywood entrepreneurship, change the world, Burning Man kind of people, great people. But in that community generally, I've met people who come from families with 16 children. It's not so rare.
Those are crazy numbers.
19 children. Yeah. And it's like, whoa, wait a second. Like, how are the communities that modern, like, organized religion, and even Buddhists, when I traveled to Laos, I was very impressed with Buddhist communities and monasteries where young kids seem super happy and giving and nourished in community. And I don't know how many data points I had. I was traveling and I was impressed with one community that I saw. But I think the religious Jews also they do have a lot of community. And there's ways to do it, even in the urban environments and stuff.
Yeah, I see there's this Jewish neighborhood in St. Louis, and like if you drive there on a Saturday, like you'll see the sidewalks are just full of them, always, walking to worship, I guess. But it's like, it's cool seeing just like a parade of people out, and it's just this one little neighborhood. And Lao, by the way, one of my favorite countries, amazing place. Yeah, really fantastic. So let's tie this all in with another thing that I'm curious about is you worked with Marianne Williamson on her campaign. Is that right?
Yeah, I did.
And I saw she just announced she's going to run again.
Yep. And
I feel like she's the most distinct or different candidate than pretty much anyone else. I feel like everyone else is trying to play the game of politics, and they're like trying to fit themselves into the existing system, which, is pretty obvious. Is like giving a false dichotomy. Like, here's your only two choices. Like, neither of those choices are good. Or someone that I actually, really like. So yeah, can you talk about like what your experience of being on that campaign was like?
Yeah. So I was in New York. I was looking to build community for a TV show that I wanted to create about people who are changing the world. And so we reached out to Marianne Williamson. I didn't know too much about her, but I knew that my cousin in Israel had studied A Course in Miracles. My cousin's friend stayed with me and was super excited about Marianne Williamson. That's how I knew even who Marianne Williamson was. It's sort of like family connection, a friend that was excited about Marianne. But then we reached out to Marianne to see if she wanted to be like on our TV show. But and this was around the time where she was considering running for the Democratic nomination. And I was super impressed with the way she spoke about the history of the United States and the purpose of the United States, like a 3-minute video. And then when talking about her consideration to run. So when I reached out to her, and then she emailed me not long thereafter, saying, "Hey, do you want to hop on the phone? Let's have a phone call." And I was surprised that she even wanted to hop on the phone. And she's like, so why are you reaching out to me? And I like, well, the first thing that came out of my mouth was like, I'd like to see you win. I didn't even talk about our TV show or whatever. I just want to see you win. And we invited her to a community called the Assemblage in New York, which was a great community that brought together people from different walks of life. And Marianne spoke in the community and did a wonderful job. And that the more that I was like associated with her and like connecting her people and connecting her for talks, I realized that actually I have like a decision to make. Am I going to join her campaign or work on this TV show that I want to create? And I knew that I'm way more excited about joining her campaign, especially because one of a big part of her platform was creating a United States Department of Peace. And for me, that seems to be like my mission in life, is to create world peace. And so I was like, yes, I am going to join this campaign. And at this point, I was like talking to the campaign manager and hobnobbing with people in the campaign, and I asked for a role, and I was officially senior advisor and director of peace building.
Mhm.
Really, I was trying to figure out like, hey, we need to raise money. We need to get visibility for Marianne. We really need to, let's worry about the peace stuff later and the Department of Peace later. So I was like, okay, maybe we need to create a plan, a serious plan for a United States Department of Peace. It's like, well, running a campaign, we need visibility, we got to raise money, we need to create a U.S. Department of Peace. There should be a private peace industry that supports the governmental United States Department of Peace. And I probably need to go out and give talks, and I need to learn how to give speeches and get into politics. It was very exciting and a lot going on, and trying to prioritize kind of what was more important was something I spent some time doing. I think the most exciting part of it was when we connected Daybreaker, which is this dance. Are you familiar with Daybreaker?
I haven't participated, but I've heard of it.
So Daybreaker is this, say, internationally recognized dance movement started by great people. I think there's at least 500,000 or 600,000 participants, mainly in the US. It's like conscious dance.
Yeah.
It's a conscious dance movement. And it's like, oh, what does dance have to do with politics, right? You mentioned ecstatic dance before. And I think, a few of us see that dance and politics actually have a place to work together somehow. And Marianne came in, we had this event in Sony Hall that Daybreaker put on, and NBC and Fox and who knows what other media was there, like nationally televised. And Marianne gave this killer speech in front of us, like 1,000 people at Sony Hall in New York City, in this dance party. And it was just like amazing. I felt like worlds coming together, and that was super exciting.
Yeah. Wow. What fun. So many places to go. So a peace department. So here's an interesting just thing that I want to put into the conversation, which is, as a species, we're derived from apes, and there's like a certain amount of our genetic heritage that makes us a warrior type species, like a conflict group, collective, warrior type species. That's I think a lot of people, there's an inherent, like, we could be a defensive warrior species. We could be like protecting the world, right? We could use our powers of warrior as the peaceful warrior, right? But it's not innately part of who we are to just be like a peaceful civilization, I think. Even though that's something to aspire to. So I'd love for you just to sort of comment about that in terms of like your efforts for peace.
I love that question. It's, early on when you were speaking there, I was like considering how I'm this like masculine guy, I'm this man with like masculine energy. I'm supposed to be like, I don't know, trying to kill something and bring back food to my tribe, and like, but I feel this masculine drive, right? I feel that in my being, and it's fun. It's a good feeling. It's good to feel grounded. I got like my legs, my feet on the ground. It's fun to feel that masculine drive and to think like, what is really the best way to you? Oh, the best, I don't know, but what is my best way to use my masculine drive for me, for my community, for the world? And back to life, like even life. Let's talk about one cell, like a unicellular organism. What does it do? It's like a cell can kind of sit there, and now it needs food. It needs to, like, I don't know, cajole or attract or go towards food and engulf it or something. So it's like our nature is, as life, where we are, life is to consume food, right? We need food. Maybe aliens or some higher life forms, if they exist, are able to, like, and some animals can convert light into energy. Maybe we do too in some way, right? But right now in our humanity, we need to like eat food. So yeah, I don't know what else to say other than, look, it's exciting for me to think and to be a person who is like, hey, let's create world peace. Let's be peace warrior. I don't really see myself as a peace warrior, but let's like think and figure out how to unite humanity with masculine and feminine energy.
So where in that process are you with the World Peace Ceremony? And it sounds like that evolved out of your being in Marianne Williamson's campaign, or did that come first?
The World Peace, the name World Peace Ceremony itself came when I was at Burning Man, probably 2016. So I was at Burning Man. Maybe some listeners don't know what Burning Man is. It's this amazing movement, probably the most exciting modern movement that I've been a part of. For me, I think for a lot of people, that brings together the artists from all walks of life and the tech elite. And I think it's like some cosmic movement that is about uniting humanity. That's how I see Burning Man. But I was at Burning Man, and it's during the man burn ceremony. There's a wooden effigy that gets burnt on Saturday night during this 1 week long experience. And I was so excited because I felt the collective intention and this concentrated intention, 70,000 people coming together. And I heard somebody next to me just said, like, in awe, like wow, World Peace Ceremony. Somebody just like, oh, and it kind of hit me like, holy moly, like this is like, holy shit, this is World Peace Ceremony. This is what we're creating here. That's, yeah. Then I was like, okay, so there's a few of us who feel called to, or many of us feel called to, like, bring this Burning Man ethos, culture to the rest of the world. And how do we do that? What can we do? There's so many things we can do. It's too much to do, maybe. We're all just doing, everybody's just doing what they're doing. And like, somebody needs to like say, okay, let's create a world peace ceremony. Let's officialize this thing, a world peace ceremony. And like one day it'll happen, you know?
And so today, what's like, what are you actively working on this project, or kind of like what's the situation as it stands?
Yeah. I'm actively working on this project. We just completed a video, kind of very, very short video showcasing like this is a snippet of like what world peace ceremony can look like. We have a website, worldpeaceceremony.com. And I'm writing a book. So I'm like prioritizing getting this book out. And soon enough, I'm going to start reaching out to corporate sponsors to see, hey, does Google, does Meta, Apple, Procter and Gamble, whoever, who wants to be part of financing world peace? Right? BlackRock. Yeah.
um who is interested? Is it, I mean, like, which company do you think really is going to step up? Like, nobody in the military industrial complex, right?
That's a great, I mean, I worked 2 years, I worked in the military industrial complex. So I was part of a security and defense company that after 9/11, we helped to secure the 4 main New York airports with sensor fusion technology. It was basically like a simple example of that is like taking a camera and a radar and combining those two signals with software. We were successful in securing the 4 main New York airports after 9/11 with like this technology together with Raytheon. And so I was 26. I didn't know much, but I was in this environment in the defense industry, working with people from the armed forces and intelligence agencies. We were involved at the time in a secret project in Abu Dhabi, which came out, so it wasn't so secret anymore. But like helping we were invited by the King of Abu Dhabi to help the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, 15 years ago, made a decision that they really wanted to connect with the West and with the United States. Because they saw I think they agreed with the philosophy of the United States in general. And so there's a defense collaboration, and I was kind of privy to that. I was part of that as a young guy, like a right-hand man of a CEO of this startup that was successful in collaborating with some of the biggest defense companies in the world. In collaboration with governments, but the entrepreneur of that defense company and his name is Mati, he had created an organization called Bridging the Rift, which was a nonprofit organization meant to bring Arabs and Israelis together in the Middle East for peace. And he teamed up with Stanford and Cornell, so it was a good institutions to do biological research, basically to create a school and bring Arabs and Israelis together. And so when I was in my 20s, all of a sudden I didn't expect this to happen for me, but I was part of a defense company where the entrepreneur of that defense company is also working on a peace initiative.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is, for me, I was like, whoa, this is like my dharma, and that was exactly in my dharma to be part of. So yes, I think the defense industry, I see a path for the defense industry, the military industrial complex, to sell peace. To let's say very bluntly and simply, they should be selling peace instead of selling war.
Okay, yeah, that's contrary to my impression because, okay, I see the Ukraine war and I imagine they're just being like, oh, this is so great. Like the US doesn't have to go to war, but we still get to sell all these weapons and test them out and like, keep advancing our technology. They're like, oh, this is an amazing real life testing ground for us to make some more explosive products. That's kind of my impression from the outside. Um,
Yeah, of course. The flip side of that, right? To be sort of like, let's see, how do we say it? So if there's a threat, we can listen in on conversations going around somewhere, and it seems like there are people who want to cause harm, or and what are we going to do? Or other countries are building bombs. Should we also build bombs, or should we be pacifists and let other people do the bad thing, and we're not going to do it? Well, it turns out it doesn't really work that way. The way it worked is we were building tools, and we were building. I'm like saying the obvious, but sometimes like saying the simple obvious things is helpful, because then we can branch off and see things from like other perspectives. We've as humans, we came from different tribes, and our tribes were not always friendly. We killed each other. We did bad things to each other, and people felt like they needed to build weapons and to protect themselves, and this is like the obvious. This is what happened. But it doesn't mean that it has to continue exactly like this. The world is always changing. It's morphing into a certain direction. So now here we are, right? Two conscious humans and many conscious listeners and people who are like, wait, what do we want to create? Where do we want the world to go now? And I think we can exert choice and slowly make the decisions. We have to. I don't think we have a choice. We have to make the best choices for us. And this is what has to happen. So then I think the defense industry can slowly rebrand itself as the defense and peace industry. It doesn't have to happen that way. We could also have a completely separate United States Department of Peace or peace initiatives. And then they're sort of competing. Then it's sort of like, oh, there's the defense industry and the peace industry or something. And then it's like the defense industry is like, wait, but we have to sell stuff in order to make a living. We need to, it might be competing. And that's not a good idea. I think that is, if the defense industry has a financial incentive to sell peace, I think that's where we want to be.
A financial incentive. What's an example of that? How would they?
Yeah. So I think Burning Man is an example of lots of effort, lots of human effort to build machines for peace. I think Burning Man is a peaceful initiative. I think the Olympics, it's still a gathering for competition. However, it's an amazing gathering where all the countries virtually all the countries in the world gather. There's tons of money spent. There are machines that get built. Infrastructure gets built. And it's really for collaboration and for
When I was a kid, the Olympics felt like a world peace ceremony, but now it feels like nope, because they used to stop conflicts. They used to stop wars for the Olympics, and now they're just like, yeah, whatever, we're going to keep fighting. Like in the last Olympics, there was like a couple of conflicts, and they're like, they just kind of ignored the Olympics, and even the genocide that was happening in China, they were like, we're going to keep doing this and just focus on the Olympic. And so the Olympics really lost its luster. I mean, nobody watched last time. It was like 90% less viewership, just because everyone was like, oh, this is not what it could be. So yeah, I mean, I had that hope growing up as a kid. That's why I love the Olympics so much, not just because, I mean, watching the athletes, but so my theory, or my conceptualization of this, is like war arises from the people. Like, it's just until there's a shift in consciousness, like nothing's going to change, right? So, and take that down to an industry level, like until the individual players, the employees, the founders in the defense industry want to do things differently, it's just going to continue the same way. So it's almost, the imperative is more just like the shifting of each individual person's awareness.
Yes. Yeah. Healing is where it's at, right? So and that's why I'm excited about Marianne Williamson, right? All of a sudden we have, this is a real, we should take this very seriously, that a woman, and it's a woman, she might be the first woman president of the United States. A woman who's been a spiritual teacher, a healer of sorts for 35 years, is running for president. And this is the second time she's running. And the first time she ran, she was the #1 most Googled candidate after the debates. And then the media and the powers that be kind of, they didn't, I think her story wasn't necessarily helping to fuel and to keep, it wasn't helping Fox News or CNN, her story. Yeah. Like, okay, great, we got some great, I don't think the shareholders and the owners of CNN and Fox saw a direct connection between Marianne's campaign and her story and their bank accounts. And I don't really believe people think like that exactly. It's not like
but her policy is essentially like that the government is a legalized bribery system for corporations to buy influence, right? I mean, I just checked out her website earlier. Her platform is, I mean, basically saying like corporations are in control, and that's not how this country was intended to be. And so, of course, corporations aren't going to like that. Of course, there's going to be a lot of resistance.
I know, which is something sometimes when I see her sort of what's the right word? I don't want to say the wrong word, but it's sort of going against a certain view, something that she feels is wrong, let's say, like you said, like corporations, hey, how do they perceive that, right? And I guess I feel like I'm more diplomatic, in a certain, and maybe we need both ways of thinking. It's like, look, if sometimes I criticize someone, like, right, even not intentionally, but let's say in person, like I have an idealistic viewpoint that seems to basically tell the person in front of me, you're wrong, what you're doing is bad, right? Not in those words,
right?
Let's say somebody in the oil industry or something like that, and then I'm gonna, usually what I do after that is, this wasn't always like that, but over time I've learned that wow, I really need to speak different. I don't want the person in front of me to feel like what they're doing is bad. I don't want them to feel like they can't be open with me, and I want to how what do we actually do to influence people to change their mind, right, or to update their thinking,
Sure.
right?
Yeah, it's like you can't fault the person cutting down the rainforest because they're like, oh, I just want to feed my family. And yet we all intuitively know like this is a really bad idea. Like you should not be cutting down the rainforest. They probably even know themselves like they're going against the best interest of almost everything, and yet they do it anyway. Um yeah, what's coming up for me is this this sense, and there's like some people in astrology have told me that we're sort of like mirroring the exact conditions on which our country was founded, like the everybody in their private homes like talking about like we need to change things, like because I recently watched this the documentary about Ben Franklin, and he went away to England and came back 10 years later. And in those 10 years that he was gone, everyone became revolutionaries. This was like in 1775 when he came back. And he was like, oh my gosh, all overnight, like all the colonists are revolutionaries. And it was this energy that like shifted. They were like, we need to change this now. And what I'm hearing is those conditions sort of astrologically are the same, and I see it in our culture. Like I feel like private citizens are all having these types of conversations. Like this is not working. Like we need a revolution in some way. Um, and I think it takes people like Marianne to just come right out and say, like, here's the situation, and here's why it's not going to work anymore. Um, even if there's no there's not like a great diplomatic way of saying it. It's not going to ruffle the
Yeah,
feathers.
I'm not judging. I think she's I think she's terrific. I love what she's doing, even though sometimes she takes a very hard stance. I don't think there's any other way to, maybe. I don't know. I like to, I'm speaking in absolutes, but I think she's doing a great job. The image I just received when you were saying that is Marianne doing her thing, speaking passionately with charisma and saying her truth without walking on eggshells, really going for it. And us and in the background, kind of, maybe some of us have family members in the defense industry or in chemical production plants or in the oil industry, and we sit down with each other, hey, I get it. I know you work super hard for what you do. I know, like, we hold each other and we listen to each other and we sit in circle and we support each other and we move each other and we don't blame each other. We're families, we're friends, we're communities. And somebody needs to do what Marianne's doing,
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about ways of shifting, like for example, maybe the oil industry can get into renewables too. They need more deals in the renewable energy industry. Otherwise, 100,000 people won't have jobs, and that change can't just happen. Like you don't just push a button. Okay, now this oil company's done, and y'all can't feed your family. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I've interviewed a few people that research free energy, and there's like really promising inventors, but also these government projects they probably have free energy, is my understanding, and it's I feel like it's the petroleum industry that's preventing free energy for the whole world, essentially. And so it's like you have to sometimes clear space for a new thing to come. It's like if you have this monolithic petroleum industry that's clogging up the energy space, they're going to be resistant to allowing free energy to exist, just because it does that. And so I almost feel like you have to clear the space first. Sometimes you have to be like, okay, get out of the way so we can fill it in with, like, I don't know, 20 new different energy ideas. It doesn't have to be wind, solar, whatever. Like, let's talk about the charge differential between the atmosphere and the ground. Lightning, right? Like it's an easy one. No one's even talking about. And then there's all these other, like toroidal systems that use crystal technology. There's so many great possibilities that I think we could have, but it's if I had it my way, we get that right. We get that going right away, because I think it facilitates a lot of other things.
Have you ever thought about getting into politics?
Nope. I feel like I would just be up against the system. That's the thing. Like, okay, I heard this great term from Aubrey Marcus, and he talks about, the shaman that I apprentice under, he calls it the Black Law. Aubrey calls it empire, but it's basically like this service to self, egoist way of operating that all empires have been built on, all colonization has been built on. It's like the extracting for my own personal gain type of thing. And yeah, I guess I'd love to hear more of your take of like these systems. Obviously, like what you see in the world today is the output of the systems that we have. So the systems are not the right systems because there's a lot of stuff we don't like. So I can't remember this acronym I heard, but like the purpose of the system is what it creates. So you can tell what a system is made for by the output that it produces, which means like there's a lot of people homeless, right? Oh, there's a system that produced an output of homelessness. That's clearly a bad system. So it needs to be a better system. I don't know where I'm going with all this. Is
no, it's exciting. I love talking about systems.
What not necessarily Marianne's views, but like if you had it your way, like what would you want to see shift for the United States in particular?
Wow. So we need better systems. Let's start with that. I agree. I love everything you just said. Well, we definitely would have some committee, a board, which is made up of many people, just asking questions like, hey, we want to maximize love. We want to maximize creativity. Like, how do we do it? Like, what can we do? There definitely needs to be some kind of open forum for ideas, for the best ideas to float to the top and then be easily distributed.
You think TED does that right now? The TED conference?
It's a TED, when it started 15 years ago or something. I was super excited when TED came out. I think now there's so much information online that back to I think the United States and the system, like the financial system and the political system, the Constitution. What's the purpose of the United States? So where we came from, basically, European pioneers came here and wrote a document about, like, hey, people from all over the world, doesn't matter what culture or country they're from, they can come here and everybody is equal, and let's create a country like that. Well, so that's pretty brilliant. That's brilliant. Love it. Amazing. it seems like cosmically, like if you were some intelligent civilization looking at humanity, it totally makes sense that, oh yeah, that if you want to create good and camaraderie and goodness, that somebody's gonna unite all the countries in the world into one culture. Okay. So I think that what I would like to see is like stepping on the gas or something in that direction. We have a lot more to go. We really can unite our cultures here consciously to create kind of an example of like for the rest of the world. This is how we unite humanity. I think the purpose of the United States is to unite humanity with our culture and our systems. I think we're doing a better job than we think. I think that a lot of us sometimes in the media lately, and maybe sometimes in the rest of the world, there's been like this anti-US rhetoric, or we're not doing a good job. And yeah, like it's true that a lot of bad things have happened. However, we're still like the only really country in the world that's brought together all the cultures into one culture. And we really need to rebrand ourselves and the rest of the world as like, this is what we're doing here. We're going to help to unite humanity. And then the system, we have Google and Apple and Meta and Facebook and Microsoft. We have great tech companies. We have amazing technology that can actually create systems that make sense. I would like to see more collaboration between the tech elite and government. And I think there's a big disparity right now. So I think
I mean, they're collaborating right now to kick people off and silence the wrong people, right? That's what they're collaborating.
TikTok or like what example are you referring to?
The Twitter files, like that there's like 26 different governmental agencies that were all trying to get the tech companies to silence people, essentially. So that kind of, they're collaborating already, but basically like that's a symptom of okay, the government's trying to silence people. The government's also going to other countries and like replacing the dictators that we don't like with the dictators that we do like, right? We're just like, we think we know what's best, and we're just going to try to impose this on the world and our own citizens.
Yeah, look, I don't know why this is my reply to this, but I like Elon Musk. Okay. I think his intentions are good. I think that he wants to help to take humanity in the right direction. He's only one human. We need to help. We need like all the hippies, the Burning Man movement, and all the super gifted, empathic yoga teachers and healers to like help someone like Elon Musk. And he may not know how to ask for that help, but somebody needs to be like, hey, we need to help you. Like, we need to help you to help yourself to fix Twitter. And so I've been fortunate to have met people in the Bay Area, San Francisco, who are friends with some of like the tech elite, but they're like these gifted, spiritual, empathic healers. So I've met people who are like in both worlds, and it's like we just need to bring that to become like more mainstream. So again, I feel like the fact that Marianne Williamson is running and she has a chance to win, it's like that vibration of tech and healing together. Maybe Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang is another guy, right? And I think a lot of my friends in the Bay Area rationality community, so like it's super technical, mathematical philosophers who like to think about AI and technology, and they're more into like Andrew Yang, and I met Andrew, and we like shake hands. We're like, oh, yeah, I'm part of the Marianne campaign, and we're like, yeah, let's collaborate. Like, perfect. Like, there's other people. Marianne's not the only candidate who gets it in a way.
Mm.
But look, I'm gonna say this about myself right now. I am optimistic and idealistic, and I love having this, like, I'm enjoying this conversation. And this is like what am I trying to say right now? I'm trying to say that, like, just because I'm excited, I don't know, I want other people to be excited. I'm like, well, what can we do so that other people, and there are, but I think the more we talk about it, then it's somebody who's like in the fringe part of the movement or something. They're like, oh, like, wow, Johnny or like Rebecca is excited by this. I didn't know Rebecca. If Rebecca is into it, I'm also into it. And we might not even say things like that consciously, but I noticed that, like, let's say I'm on Facebook or something, and sometimes I'll be surprised. Oh my God, that friend like is into healing. Like, let's say somebody who's like a nerd of a rationality movement is all of a sudden into healing and meditation. Like, oh fuck, I love that. Or vice versa. Like, this hippie person who's like into spirituality is talking about logic and rationality or something. Oh fuck yeah, I love seeing how different.
Yeah, interesting. What, I don't know, what is the rationality movement? I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah. Wow. So I came across this rationality movement in 2011, 2012 in San Francisco, Berkeley, Mountain View. And the reason I came across it is because I was into AI. I had seen a TED talk that this guy, Ray Kurzweil, gave. He gave the talk in 2008. And in this talk, he talked about a future hypothesis for humanity and where this is all going, called the singularity, which is about technology advancing rapidly and human endeavors in many different areas increasing exponentially, like mobile phone adoption rates increasing exponentially. Like, everybody has, it's not just increasing linearly, it's increasing exponentially. Our understanding of the human mind is increasing exponentially. Our understanding of genetics and in different areas of life. And if we even go back to history, we see exponential improvements in the human condition. And he forecasted that in 2045, and this is like an MIT, Ray Kurzweil is like this MIT technologist, received recognition from multiple US presidents, inventor. He's a recognized technologist and thinker. He was like the Al Gore of AI in a way. Like, Al Gore was like the big prolific speaker about global warming, that he kind of made climate change mainstream. For me, when I saw Ray Kurzweil talk about the singularity on a TED talk, I was like, wow, this is, for me, I studied science in college. I was like, my major was biology.
Yeah, same.
And oh, awesome.
Yeah.
So, my dad's a scientist. My mom is she was like a biblical studies teacher. But I grew up secular, non-religious. But like, the ethos of like spirituality is very much a part of me. And so I kind of grew up with spirituality and science. So when for some reason, with the information I had and the limited information I had, or who I was, Ray Kurzweil's talk was like, for me, like, wow, the biggest thing. Like, oh my God, this is what's it connected science and spirituality, even though I wasn't even spiritually. And that had me become super interested in AI in around 2010. And I moved to San Francisco. And that's when I met people who were researching AI, but they weren't only researching AI professionally, they were also very interested in human rationality. And they kind of were leaders in the rationality movement because some of them believed that in order to even show humanity what's really going on with technology, we need to think rationally. We need to learn how to think rationally and logically so we can even have like actual, fruitful discussions and understandings of AI and the most important things. And so, some of the, so these, I went to Burning Man. My first time at Burning Man 2012 was with like a rationality camp, an AI rationality camp. Yeah.
Interesting. What do you think of AI as it stands today?
Yeah. I'm not as worried as some people, I think. I think there is room to be optimistic. There's also room to be concerned. So I think both, I tend to, my makeup is to think, what is the ideal outcome? What are potential ideal outcomes? And how can we create those ideal outcomes? I think other people in their makeup, they're more like, what's the worst thing that can happen? And let's try to prevent that. So, and some of those people have done a lot more thinking about AI than I have. So I kind of preface by that. But I think that I'm very impressed with ChatGPT, GPT-4. I like Sam Altman. I like the way he's going about it. I think he's very humble, and like, I like how humble he is. He just really seems like, look, I wonder what I also don't know about what is going on there, right?
Sure.
I think it's a little weird. I think what is a little weird about GPT is that I heard that when they were done building it, it was like good and bad, meaning it was very impressive in both directions. They had to build a small layer to make it palatable, to make it accessible for humans, and so that it won't say bad things. But I like that it seems to have been really easy for them to do that. It seems that Sam Altman, the leader of OpenAI and ChatGPT, GPT-4, it wasn't that hard to get ChatGPT to be benevolent. I think they also gave up. It's not perfect, and there's some truths, even like, especially in spirituality, that they lean more into the sciences and less into spirituality. But I think I'm optimistic that this stuff will get fixed. And this is not the only AI out there. I'm kind of surprised. Google DeepMind was, for a long time, Google was considered to have definitely the best AI. The fact that Google has not really been so public about, they had this Bard AI that is like ChatGPT, but supposedly is not as impressive, is interesting.
You think they're keeping it under wraps for?
I don't know, but Google is, I think that they were like saying, hey, we care about the toughest problems to solve, like the problems with protein folding, like the biochemistry of the human condition, life. And I think they're doing a great job. It's like super exciting to see what's happening there. So for me, when you talk about AI globally, like what's going on, I think that you have China, the United States, governmental agencies, right? creating AI.
Mhm.
And what I don't know, and what very few people know, is what does the US government have with AI? What does the Chinese government? What does Japan have? What does Germany have? What do the G10 countries who are super smart have an AI capability? And when you talk about encryption is like, the ability to enter system, or like to protect yourself.
Yeah.
Like, does the US government have Google's AI code or not? Right? If you're the NSA or the CIA, are you say, okay, Google DeepMind, they can do whatever they want, or are you kind of saying, hey, we're gonna have their code because we're the government, and we're gonna send people to pick up that code who are gonna pretend to be Google employees, or we're just gonna send in some bot to access the code? And do these different governments have each other's code? That's where it gets tricky and interesting too.
And I don't know too much about this, but quantum computing basically has the processing power. It's like infinite processing power, right? So if you have that, you can cryptography isn't relevant anymore because you can just crack any code because you have sort of this next level processing power.
That's the path we're on. It hasn't really been proven yet. I have some friends who are in that, we're building quantum computers. And we're not there yet, but that's the promise of, that is where it seems like we're going. And now, if it is proven, maybe if a government has that, then I don't know about it, but it's pretty well understood that the public quantum computers are not yet able to do that. Although it's like, oh, it seems like a simple, like that a quantum computer will be able to crack, let's say, SHA-256, which is like the hashing algorithm of Bitcoin. So it seems that crypto in general may be even prone to somebody with a quantum computer. But I'm not, I'm not sure. But that's, yeah, people talk about that.
Okay, one thing I want to make sure to ask you about, slight just change of topic, your name. Did you give yourself the name Arcturus Eden? Where did that come from?
So my given name is Daniel Roth in Hebrew. And, my whole life I was Daniel. And a few months ago, I was sick. I had the flu. Didn't feel like the flu. I got tested. Is it this or that? I think you have the flu. Okay. And I never felt like this before. I felt like every thought I had was very slowed down and magnified. And my experience, I was in an apartment in Brooklyn, New York. My experience was that some intelligent civilization was like speaking to me.
Sweet.
Now, I knew that I don't know, but really that's what's happening, but that's what it feels like. I've never seen aliens. I'm kind of, I don't believe things so fast, but that's what it felt like. And all of a sudden, this feeling like this intelligent civilization speaking to me, it said, your name should be, like, your name is Arcturus. And I was like, wow, okay. This has never happened to me before. And it just felt like, okay, I accept it. It was a feeling of like, after 2 or 3 days of feeling like something is communicating with me, and that my new name is Arcturus. Okay, I accept my name. And then, 10 years ago, I had thought about making my last name, adding the word Eden to my last name, because I kind of felt like, well, this realization that sound, the our names and the sounds that our names make and the frequencies of the sounds in the universe have meanings, and they also participate in shaping our life. And I kind of felt like I want the world to go in that direction, Eden, in some, like, in a positive direction. But I didn't do it. I was like, I kind of thought about making my last name Eden, and I didn't do it. But now I was like, I think I'm ready to do it. So I legally changed my name to Arcturus Eden.
In the last few months? That's how recent?
Yeah, just
wow,
a month and a half ago, I physically went and did
sweet.
that.
That's that's so fascinating. Also, what other messages were you getting from this extraterrestrial civilization? And I wanna share some things that I have come across in my interviews that you might find interesting, but I'm just curious, like what you got from this illness.
Oh, wow. I feel like that name, that it was such a, that was like by far the biggest or surprise, that it kind of overshadowed everything else. I don't even I don't remember. But what did happen 2 days later, or 2 or 3 days later, I had a dream where I saw a flying saucer, and it was like exact and perfect. It wasn't, some dreams are blurry. You can kind of see what's going on, not really. Now this dream, I saw a shiny flying saucer. It was perfect. And when I woke up, I was like, oh, wow, oh my God. Like, Arcturus is the name of a star.
Mhm.
And then there's people who believe that there's this Arcturian alien civilization. And so it was all kind of connected for me like that. And I feel, I do sort of feel like, maybe my experience now when you ask me that question is that the other thoughts I had were like connecting, like there's like big picture world peace thinking, which I had shied away. It wasn't never easy for me to be like, oh yeah, I'm creating world peace. Like, I think like the thoughts that I had were like, no, like connecting neurons in my brain to like, you're doing it, it's all good, you can finally be who you were meant to be. Now you can be, and I felt like the name Daniel, it just wasn't, I wasn't able to be who I to be anymore, or something with that name.
Yeah. Well, so I have a strong sense that I will be getting a new name pretty shortly. It's just one of those things where it's like I never thought about it before, and I just like I kind of feel like it's coming. So it's interesting that happened to you already. And I've also had the experience of this like forced timeout through a week. It's like not the normal flu. It's just like you just have to be in bed for 4 days, and it's like I can't even look at a screen. I can't distract myself. I just have to basically like sit there. It's like a forced silent meditation retreat. And all this stuff drops in while I'm in these, forced meditative retreats.
So so you don't know what your new name is yet? Or
I don't know. I don't know where it's coming from. But you're totally right in that like each sound, each syllable, right, is its own creative force. And I think, there's a lot of ways that we can optimize the use of sound as and names as a creative force. And it's also another one of those tools of empire, like manipulating language to keep people in a box. So it's totally something we can.
So the second half of the story of my name is that this all happened when I was in New York, and then I was coming to Miami to visit my parents, my family, and it's like, oh, we haven't seen each other in a few months, and I didn't want to like say to them, oh, I changed my name. I was kind of like, when it comes up, if it even comes up during the trip,
Yeah, because your parents picked that name out for you. Yeah.
yeah, and there's so many other things to catch up about, and so it wasn't my intention to say my name, but what happened was we were kind of sitting here, hanging out here. I'm kind of working on my computer, and there's someone, maybe my mom's in the kitchen making noise or something, like, normal kitchen noise. And I kind of turn around, like, and then maybe there's like a little heightened tension in the room. And she's like, what? I'm making noise. This is my kitchen or whatever. And all of a sudden this escalated into like a minor kind of argument. I'll use the word. Kind of like tension, conflict, like, come on, like, whatever, but where can I work? I want to work here. And then she says the words to me. She looks at me and says, "What? I always feel like you're judging me." She says to me, and I look at her and I'm like, well, you gave me this name, Daniel. The meaning of Daniel is judged by God. God is my judge.
Mm.
And Dani in Hebrew means my judge. So here I am.
I see. Wow.
And like, you gave me this name, and so I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm gonna change my name to Arcturus then. And she was like shocked. Like, and then we just started we were laughing about it later, but I feel like cosmically in the universe, that was like the final confirmation, like, yep. I don't know, maybe my mom needed for me to judge her or something, because that was the name. That's what Dani means, at least in Hebrew. I think my friend Dana, who's kind of Irish, has a different meaning in different languages.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It means joy, and like Gaelic or something, I think maybe it means joy. So don't quote me on that, but there's a different meaning. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So part of the reason I had you on the show was because of your name. So I've had multiple people, either, you familiar with the Akashic records?
Yeah.
What those are. So I've had people read my Akashic records, including Galactic Historian, which is someone that can like trace your soul's progression through different ET civilizations. So multiple people have all told me that my soul originates in the Arcturian civilization.
Oh, wow.
So anytime I see someone who's like, "Yo, I'm an Arcturian," I'm like, "Hey, yo, all right, me too. Let's hang out." So, and it's so funny because the planet itself, which is not Arcturus, there's multiple planets, but there's theoretically the main Arcturian civilization planet is like in Eden. It's like the most like Earth,
really?
Earth, but without the trash. It's like
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What? Maybe I knew that. I didn't know that. Really? There's a planet called Eden around Arcturus?
No, it's not. I'll have to look up the name. There's multiple planets in that star system. And I believe the Arcturian race, let's call it, is like distributed among all the planets, but their main planet is like like Earth is a gem of a planet. It's like so perfect for living. And my understanding is that there's like a very beautiful place to live.
Beautiful. Yeah. It's been, so we're soulmate. You're my cousin.
Yeah, we might be buddies back on back on Arcturus. So it's interesting because you were talking about this the crop circles. I got into the UFO phenomenon because I had 5 weeks in a row where I dreamed of crop circles every night. And finally I was like, what? Okay, I started doing my research, like what are crop circles? How are they made? And then basically that led me to the UFO phenomenon. About 6 years ago at this point.
So what do you think is the origin of crop circles? Or some crop circles are man-made and some aren't, or what is it?
Yeah, there's some people can do a replica of a crop circle, but most real crop circles fall directly over large quartz deposits, and they can only be made sort of because of that interaction with the quartz. And they're made in less than 2 minutes, usually, with these little drones that sort of come down theoretically from another craft, that's sort of in the upper atmosphere. And they just kind of like hover over the crop, and the crop sort of like folds into its perfect the images that you see.
That's fascinating. So is there any purported footage of a drone?
There's a couple. I've been able to find a couple little clips they're actually from the 90s, I believe. English TV stations that sort of, there's crop circle season. So in the midsummer in England is when you get all the crop circles, and there's this one area of England which is where the geology is appropriate for crop circles. And that's, there's like 1,500 crop circles in that part of England every year. And so you could just theoretically camp out and turn your camera on and hope to see a crop circle. And so that's what happened. Was this film crew, a couple of decades ago, had footage of these little orbs creating a crop circle. I don't think a lot of people also see just like all of a sudden a misty cloud comes in for a minute or two and then disappears, and there's a crop circle where the cloud was. So I think perhaps there's some sort of cloaking technology to just sort of, because if you were just to see like a field full of fog, you wouldn't necessarily think, oh, a crop circle is being made, or there's something going on here. But
totally, I think, and I'll say this might be a trigger warning if there are any scientists or rationalists listening to this. They may not love what I'm about to say, but we've already proven with the double slit experiment that our observation of reality alters energy particles in space. And so maybe in sort of this multi-dimensional universe, spirits or higher intelligences, whether they are spiritual entities or alien civilizations, or both together somehow, can simply alter this three-dimensional universe by thinking about it, by desiring to create it. It just happens like with their thought or something. Maybe, right? It's a possibility.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, these I interviewed one of these crop circle researchers, right? And she's like goes out and walks in the crop circles every year. And some of them are really interesting. They're like, they bring in their scientific instruments in there, and there's like all kinds of different types of radiation. And some people get instantaneously healed in crop circles, and some people feel like a smaller percentage of people feel much worse. They go in and they get nauseated and they like can't find their way back out. So someone has to walk them out. So there's a lot going on within the crop circle itself. Like you enter a field when you step into the crop circle that most people say is like, blissful. They call them temporary temples. They feel like they're in like a beautiful cathedral or something when they go inside them. I haven't been in one though.
Wow. Yeah. They're definitely humans who are very sensitive to spiritual energies, and this is their passion and what they spend most of their time doing professionally. Places like in Sedona and maybe Maui. I lived in Maui a little bit, so I know. And in Northern California, not Tahoe. Why is this name?
Shasta,
yeah. So a beautiful documentary about Shasta where we talked about that. So yeah, there's like energy vortexes on Earth, right?
Mhm.
And I that's what's exciting for me is, and where I feel like science can do more. And when I say science can do more, we need to like create new tools of measurement so we can measure these energies that we don't yet know how to measure. Maybe, maybe we know how to measure them spiritually or like through our experience, but it would be not, wouldn't it be nice to have a machine that, look, here's the energy, like
Yeah,
from
what you run into is when you're like trying to measure non-Newtonian physics with Newtonian instruments. Like when you try to measure non-3D phenomenon with a 3D instrument. I had a guy that lives in Miami, had him on my show, and he is one of the he calls it scalar physics. There's like a few other terms for it, but it's like fundamental to electromagnetism waves and gravitational waves is scalar waves. So he's like, basically those two components make up scalar waves, but you can't actually measure scalar waves. They have effects, but you can't measure them directly with the instrumentation we have.
God, you're making me want to go on ChatGPT right now and ask some scientific questions. Though I usually probably would learn that, like, oh wait, damn it, like, why is it not talking about 5D stuff? And where's like,
Well, ChatGPT can only pull from it pulls from the existing references, right? Like it.
and what OpenAI considers to be the reputable sources, as opposed to, let's say, if somebody's said 5D, for them 5D is like, no, that's pseudoscience. That's, we don't know what that is. They don't treat that as in the same way as double-blinded scientific knowledge. But so what maybe a question we can ask, what is a way to create non-Newtonian quantum instrumentation, quantum multidimensional, and some people are doing that, but I feel like there's so much more to be done, like 5D instrumentation. It's being done, and I don't know enough about it to even to speak about it, but no,
Yeah.
actually here, this is exactly what I take back. I take back saying that we need more people who know, look, I know that I don't know really, I know that I don't really understand quantum physics. I know that I don't really understand 5D, but it's okay. I can still be an ambassador. I still can say, hey, let's create instrumentation. Let's do it. I think sometimes we're afraid, like, oh, I'm not an expert in this area, so I can't talk about it, or I can't, I think that kind of thinking holds us back. We need more people who are free thinkers who interact with the scientific community and academia, and inspire academia to say, hey, okay, fine, we'll research a thing. Sometimes
Academia hates free thinkers.
What's that?
Academia hates free thinkers.
Oh, yeah, you know what they hate more? They hate more writing for grant funding. It's a terrible.
Oh, yeah. That's why I got out of that business.
Okay, so I was just talking to my friend yesterday, like, he's like, and he loved, like, he did a PhD in Cambridge and he had a great experience, but he was in the humanities and he loves academia, and he doesn't understand why some people kind of down talk academia. So look, a lot of the science that's happening in academia is like they're trying to get grant funding just to get the funding for something that they don't even want to do. A, B, it's not even necessarily real science, because the grant funders, they want to fund stuff that's going to get published into journals, and then people can go to galas and Aspen and, I don't know, Davos, and
Yeah,
where
don't get me started on academic model.
So I think it's like we need both. We need the free thinkers to influence the researchers in academia. Like, this is cool, let the research, and we need the wealthy elite to want to publish in their journals the cool stuff. And they like publishing cool stuff. It's just that, in my humble or not humble opinion, what they think is cool is, it's sometimes cool, but there's cooler stuff. Like, for example, like what we're 5D instrumentation, and anti-gravity. I think actually that anti-gravity, to kind of back to crop circles and UFOs, I think that there are some people who are trying to create anti-gravity technology, like what a UFO might use. And there's like a real physics behind gravity and how to create. There are different ways. You can even ask ChatGPT, hey, what are ways to create anti-gravity technology? And what are the esoteric ways to create anti-gravity? And even the simple ways, like how fast you need to spin a disk in order for it to, a disk that weighs 100 kilograms in order for it to rise up 10 feet. And I think that's an exciting world to live in, to use AI even like that to, but I think that an international, like an anti-gravity project in academia can help to create peace. I think that in World War II, this is why I'm so excited about this, is because it connects my beliefs for extraterrestrial intelligence in the universe in general, world peace, uniting humanity, and technology, and maybe our crazy beliefs, which are not so crazy, in UFOs, and is that I think there's low-hanging fruit in bringing super brilliant people together to create a recognized, well-funded anti-gravity project, similar to, in World War II, we created the Manhattan Project, which was creating a bomb, an atom bomb, nuclear weapon. Terrible. We still need to figure out how to, I don't know, unshackle.
I think all we need is to remove the control systems. I think we already have in secret government programs, because I've talked to people that have utilized these vehicles. I think we already have the technology. It's just needs to be disseminated. I think that's where we're at right now.
I love the simplicity, like that simple. So you think, okay, what's the simple, you think that removing the control systems?
So here's where I come from. And I realize we're I want to be mindful of your time. You got to leave in half an hour.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Where I'm at is that, okay, people are trying to control other people because that's like an innate part. So I have kids. Sometimes I just want them to do what I want them to do. I want them to get ready for bed or to brush their teeth, like whatever it is. And I have to be super careful about how I try to control them. And there's an innate human thing where we just want people to do the thing that we want them to do. And that comes out as control systems. Like people that want to control other people build systems to control other people. And that's why we have suppression of free energy or anti-gravity. And that it has to be from within. People have to realize like what within themselves is like creating, the things that they don't like in the world.
Yeah. So, yeah. Somehow, so I love that. Somehow this reminds me of like an ideal system. There's a lot of coordination in the right ways between humans. Humans collaborate, coordinate. There's unity, and information is easily distributed and products and services are easily distributed from one corner of the earth to another, and it still allows everyone to like be free. So, so like democratizing information. It's like organizing and democratizing information, yet enabling everyone to be free, and it's got to be in the same system.
It just reminded,
yeah.
You just reminded me of, like, I don't know, a few months ago, I thought, like, okay, what would be the ideal role of the US government in the future? And I basically saw it as like an organization that facilitates people's lives. It's like there, and it almost we could combine it with AI. Like, what do local organizations need? What regionally, like, how do we need to interact between the Northwest and the Southwest and the East, like, and the US government is like the web that facilitates the interaction at these different scales, right? So they're there as like a service, because it's basically a service for the people, and it needs to shift to being one of just like, how can we help get people the things they need to optimize their lives, essentially.
Yeah. It reminds me of like Patry Friedman's kind of floating cities ideas. There's a movement of starting floating cities with different with a government system that's not tied to any country. So if you have a floating city in the middle of the ocean, you can have your own government because you're not part of any country. And the idea of like experimenting with different governmental systems to see which governmental system facilitates the lives of people better. It was kind of meant to happen in the United States, that, oh, you have different states. Some states like abortion and other states don't like abortion. It's a big hot topic. And if you don't like what your state is doing, that or any other topic, you go to a different state. And if you don't like the United States federal government, you can go live in Germany or Japan or Ethiopia. And kind of annoying to think like that, though. Oh, what, you now
you gotta move
to like move, like, yeah. So I don't know, like, we'd like to think that a utopian society would be a lot easier. You wouldn't need to move away from your country or where you live. Like, so what's the role of the US government in the future?
And there's like a fundamental principle that, of course, would have its nuances that would have to be sorted out in the legal system, but like the law of non-intervention, is that, maybe that's not the correct term, but basically you don't force people to do what they don't want to do. I mean, essentially that's like what libertarians want, but it's like, how do you just sort of have a fundamental where it's like people are truly free to just use their own free will, and then the conflict comes, the legal would come when there's like two free wills in conflict, of course, but like with like noise violation, like I want to play my music loud, like, you're not allowed to play your music loud after 10, but
totally. It's like, it's weird about if somebody kind of wakes up in the morning and says, hey, my mission in life is to create joy in the world. And then they go in the world and they made 10 people joyous, but a few people are like, no, I don't want to be joyous. I want to be curious. I want to study physics, but I want you to be happy. Like, wait a second. Like, but I thought I was doing good in the world. Like, I'm kind of using this exaggerated scenario that even so many people think that they're doing good or something, and they're like trying to force people to do what they think is good or something.
Classic NGO story, like white white kid goes to Africa. Let me fix you guys. Like, don't let him touch anything.
Yeah. So and that's like spirituality. Like there's some like there's intelligence here. I find that's guiding us somewhere. And there are different types of intelligences and spiritual entities, and that's my experience. And I trust, and I like to trust. I don't always trust the spiritual entities around me, but I like to believe that the overall direction of the whole thing is in the right direction. Also, because we're not just humans, we are a soul. Each of us is the energy, the soul that chose this human experience. And for most of my life, I didn't live like that. I thought, you know, when I like entered the workforce, let's say, and I started thinking about what my vision is or what my purpose is in life, I thought that the best purpose or something is to be kind of impact humanity and impact, and it still is a good, I think that's a good line of thought in general. However, more recently, I've kind of saw that actually I'm a soul, and there's a greater soul purpose perhaps than my human purpose, and like soul evolution is where it's at.
Nice. That could be a good place to wrap. Anything I haven't asked you about, or anything you want to mention or point people towards?
I would love it if anyone feels called to be part of a world peace movement or uniting humanity and any level. worldpeaceceremony.com. Feel free to reach out to me. And so much enjoyed our conversation. I'd love to come back on in the future whenever it's in flow for you. And I love that we have randomly found out we have like 25 mutual friends, and it was like cosmically, divinely planned. Great meeting you, great chatting with you.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
All right.